Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Biker Beyond. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today we have with us John Hill. In 2012, John began his first business-to-business sales role as a medical device salesperson. In 2014, he moved to help a close friend grow a website design agency. Being in sales for close to 20 years in various shapes, it was moving to the small business segment and learning about networking and entrepreneurship that forced him to get out of his comfort zone and really change. He left the website design agency in 2018, and he now has a few things on the go, including Adapted Growth, which is a company focused on giving small teams and entrepreneurs a repeatable process to sell with. And also Sales Throwdown, a podcast where he and his co-hosts take a deep dive into personalities and comfort zones using the DISC methodology to talk about what holds us back and how to keep moving forward. So let's get started. Hi, John. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So let's get started with just giving me a background about you and your company, and then we'll just go from there and jump into the interview.
Sure, yeah. So I have a sales consultancy company, and we work with small teams and entrepreneurs to get them ready to scale their sales past themselves, right? When you're an entrepreneur, until you bring someone else in to do it for you, you are also a salesperson. And most of the entrepreneurs that I know have pretty big goals, which means that you're going to need team and scale and how to do those things the right way. And it's terrifying whenever, you have sold and you've been successful to put all of that trust in someone else, especially if you're doing kind of like paid acquisition through like digital marketing and things like this. So what we do is we work with them to standardize the selling process, get all that knowledge out of the top performer's head, distill that knowledge among the other salespeople on the team, or get you ready to bring in like a commission only closer, so that way you can hand off your sales with some trust and process and management and the technology necessary. So that's kind of the main gig. And along with that, I have a podcast with three other people, and we talk about sales very specifically around personalities, because we've all put in the work to understand that our personality can help us, but sometimes it doesn't, especially in sales roles. And so we were having some conversations about things we were stuck on, and the advice that we were giving each other was all kind of different depending upon where we sat on this personality assessment that a lot of people are familiar with. It's called DISC. And so we thought that it would be cool to have a show talking about sales topics and selling at large, and focusing on, adjusting to what the person who's sitting across from you actually needs, when most people treat it as, this is just an opportunity for me to get my sales, or for me to get my needs by making a sale. And so, we're all pretty committed to trying to make it more personable, more humane, and trying to shift, the stigma of sales away from the plaid jacket used car sales guy.
Well, I think a lot of entrepreneurs too, from my experience and people I've met, don't necessarily like sales. That's not what they went into business on their own to do, but they're stepping out into entrepreneurship, not realizing that they have to even sell themselves. And so sales is an important aspect of any entrepreneur, solopreneur, if you want to call them that is trying to get their business started. And then they're going to come to a point where they're going to need to have that scaled.
Absolutely. And the goal really is, especially with COVID-19 and everybody being laid off and furloughed and everything, there's a lot of really top-notch sales talent who are looking for ways to work from home and to make the kind of money that they were making before. And so we get people ready to bring those kinds of people in, so that way they can handle the calls. You trust that they're set up for success, and everybody's on the same page, right? You know how they operate and what's important to them. You've got the tech, you've got everything necessary, so that way you can keep an eye on it, but it's not this thing that is competing with all the other priorities you have as the owner, founder of your company.
How did you get started in the sales business of providing sales for entrepreneurs? Because in yourself, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So how did you transform that into your business?
Yeah. So I joined the Army in 2001. I had dropped out of school because I had some credit card debt, didn't really have anything going on. So in May of 2001, I decided to join the Army. Then 9/11 happens. I was a reservist anyway. So I came home in December from all my training and didn't really have a job. 9/11 had just happened. There weren't really a lot of jobs in my job trained field for the military. So I decided to just go wait tables and got pretty good at it. And then started to realize that the more that I upsold certain things, the higher my ticket average was, which had a significant impact on my tips. So I started very aggressively going for apps and desserts and upsells and things like this. And eventually I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this. Let's see if I can do it more, and really got into sales focused roles, especially in like the wireless industry. I worked for, T-Mobile, AT&T when the iPhone was coming out and stuff like this, and had really good results. And did some other stuff. Was a personal banker, sold investments, and did all those things. Did some mortgage originations and everything in 2010, 2011. The best time to be in those worlds.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine that I knew from martial arts invited me to come sell medical devices, right? So transitioning into B2B, which sounded awesome, and then medical devices, which is the brass ring, and got in there. And I've never worked so hard and struggled as a salesperson as much as I did in that role. Partially because that's how the game is played with medical devices, but partially because I didn't really realize how big of a difference there was from B2C to B2B. And
Hmm.
a friend of mine said, hey, you should come meet my sales coach. And I was like, I don't need a coach. I had all this ego. And
Yeah.
which is crazy because I was friends with this guy also from martial arts, right? And in martial arts, you're very much in a coached environment, right?
Yeah.
Your master, sensei, sifu, whatever you want to call them, is teaching you this thing, right? That is a process for fighting. And I love that world, but that was the only part of my entire life where I was coachable. So finally I had a moment of clarity and decided I would go talk to this coach, and had a huge moment. And so I go back to my boss at the time and was like, hey, we should do this. He's like, no, we just need more time and more doors, go make something happen. And so trying to make all of that happen. And then the other guy who was already working with the coach said, hey, I'm going to start a website design agency. Do you want to come in as a partner and help me run it? And I said, yes, if we can work on the sales stuff. And he was like, that's the whole reason that we're talking about it. So he'd already been entrepreneurial and small business focused for about a decade. And so I got to work side by side with this guy who had already done so much work on himself and his personality and his limiting beliefs and everything else like this to be really, really formidable in this area. And got to work with him and really just started to work on all this, on all the selling stuff. We were websites exclusively, but we had development teams. So I was just focused on selling and trying to get the best results possible from the conversations. And the pipeline got deep, and I needed a better way to management. So we started looking at CRMs. And that was when I really started to geek out, right? Because I love data and knowledge and process and all of this stuff. And so
Yeah.
started playing with like CRMs, and then started helping other people with CRMs. And then I started to see for myself that I didn't really want to be doing websites for the rest of my life. I think that more people need marketing than they need actual like website redesigns. Now, that's not always true, but it was kind
Well,
of how
I've had conversations with people and recently, and it seems that websites are not as important or not as useful as they once were, because your website, this is how I've taken it from other conversations I've had. Websites are someplace people go after they find you.
yeah, agreed.
And so that you need the marketing, you need everything else so you can get people to your website.
Yeah, and this has shifted a lot even in the past couple of years since I've stopped working at the website thing. But marketing is so much about being specific to the people that you're trying to help, right? And landing pages very specific to certain audiences and around certain lead magnets and stuff like that are going to do a much better job about building some rapport and some trust with a certain target market than just sending everybody to the same content,
Yeah.
right? And whenever people were calling us and looking for websites, they were really looking for marketing and more leads, right? But they just thought that if they redid their website, it was going to be the game changer. And so
You
I would
build it
spend
and they will come.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I would spend the majority of my time trying to figure out, hey, do you have a marketing problem or is this really a website problem? And I'm a big believer in doing the right thing, right? So like if someone is really looking for marketing, then I would say, hey, look, you don't really have a website problem. You need marketing help. And I'm happy to make some introductions if you want, but I don't think you're going to get the ROI out of just redoing your website, because that builds trust and it's the right thing to do. So The pipeline was deep, started to play with CRMs and really started to geek out on like the amount of data you could collect so that way you could actually improve your percentages whenever you get an opportunity, because that's kind of the name of the game. There's not any silver bullets, right? You have to adjust and continually work to improve. And I don't think that many salespeople like live in that kind of coachable mental environment, right? Because it's so easy to tell yourself whatever you want to believe, right?
Yeah.
Every salesperson I talk to about what I do, they say, well, John, I don't need that because I close everybody I talk to. Okay, right? Congratulations. I don't know anybody who does that even with free products, but
Yeah.
you're probably killing it, and you probably don't need my help. But
Or they don't realize they need it.
exactly, right? And that there were so many things about having a well-managed CRM that was set up for how I sold that took so much pressure off of me, and it made it easier to do my selling activities that I needed to do and then go off and do the other stuff that I needed to do that was also part of my role. And it allowed me to get to a place to where I wasn't robbing Peter to pay Paul. Most people feel like they can either sell or they can manage their current relationships and their current clients. And so what happens is you have these lopsided priorities on one side or the other, when in actuality, if most people were dedicated to spending 90 minutes towards like prospecting activities, they would have a deep enough pipeline that it wouldn't be an issue. But you got to be honest with yourself about what you're doing and what is working and what isn't. And that's really what a CRM is for.
So
And
let's,
go ahead. Sorry.
if you don't mind me shifting
Yeah.
just a second, because you're talking about all these CRMs. What is your go-to CRM?
So there's three that I really like, right? And they're
Okay.
very specific depending upon how you sell and how your company is built and the things that are important to you. If you're doing a lot of email marketing and a lot of email offers, and you're doing a lot of the digital marketing things, right, the landing pages, the lead magnets and stuff like this, then the one that I like the most are ActiveCampaign, and I really like Entreport, right? They're both big. You can do lots with them. You can get any data about anything that you want to, and it's really, really nice. If you're more of like the tried and true salesperson, right? You're having lots of conversations, you're prospecting, you're qualifying and closing and doing it mostly via conversation and through like individual efforts, maybe with a little bit of automation. The one that I like the most is Pipedrive, because you can pull reporting on pretty much anything you want, and there's real clarity to how deep is your pipeline, right? And there's a lot that benefits a salesperson by having a deep pipeline. You can go for the no, you can stand your ground, you can you don't have to rely on hope and these things that are not successful when you've got 30 people in your pipeline versus when you only have 3. All those conversations are way more precious, right? Because you need a yes from one of those 3. So there's a bunch of little things that add up that make it
I'll
better.
say this is the first interview that I haven't heard of any of the programs somebody uses. I've not heard of any 3 of those. Some of the ones that I've played around with, like Insightly and HubSpot and stuff like that, but the 3 that you mentioned, I never heard of. So
Yeah,
they're definitely
HubSpot.
3 that I'll look at.
Yeah, HubSpot is awesome. The thing is they've got their CRM for free, which is really, really great, and it gets a lot of people in there. The bad thing about it, though, is that paywall, whenever you run into it around their free CRM, is pretty steep, right? Versus something like Pipedrive, which you can get for $15 a month if you've got good habits, or $30 a month if you don't want to build certain habits around email importation and things like that. But the goal is to educate people on why this tool is so important and why it benefits, as opposed to being something that most salespeople hate.
Which is why I like hearing about new tools and learning about new tools, because then I always have the toolbox in the back of my head when somebody asks advice on what's the best tool. Then you can look and say, okay, and it actually needs to be tailored to what you want to do, but then you have things in the back of your head you can pull from and give advice.
Absolutely.
We were talking before the interview started and talking about lots of things that everybody's working on, and you're doing some writing and you're doing your business. So how do you keep track of everything you're doing? Do you use a CRM that has project management tools in it, or how do you keep track of all your ongoing projects that you're working on?
So this is this might be individual to me, but I don't like the tools that try to be like the all-in-one solution,
Yeah.
which is why I'm personally not the biggest fan of HubSpot, right? If you're a huge company, you have mountains of content and you're really trying to build that inbound engine, then it's perfect, right? Go that way. But, you know, not everybody needs that, and the thing that you said a moment ago is something I talk about all the time, like which tool is the best tool. The best tool is the one that you will actually use,
Yeah.
right? Because they do need some customization for the individual, right? And with a good CRM, it's going to walk you through some onboarding and it's going to try to like do some of the customization for you, but it's never enough, right? I mean, there's always gaps in the sales process that can be managed differently. We can automate them sometimes through use of the CRM and things like that, because the goal should be to do more with less, right? I mean, salespeople are going to struggle because of everything that's going on with COVID-19 and people not being in their offices and people working from home and divided attention. So you're going to have to do more efforts, and the way you do more efforts is by having a repeatable process. So that way you're not having to recreate the wheel with each individual thing, and you don't know where anything stands. It's you know um, someone moves from a prospect to someone who's qualified, meaning that they hit some of the metrics that are important to you or your company around the targeting to make sure that you're spending time with the right kind of people, right? Most salespeople are super happy to talk to anybody who will fog a mirror and stay still long enough to like listen, but that's not really a practical
Live
approach.
body that was just sit there and yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if you have a CRM, there's opportunity there to say, oh, this target market that we thought we were killing it for actually takes longer to sell in a close than this market over here. So maybe we should double down and refocus our efforts. And that's where your sales and your marketing start to come together, right? And I know there's all this stigma that sales and marketing are separate, but there's a lot of animosity between the two groups and a lot of this in a lot of companies. But you should be working closer, because the more you can give to your marketing team about good fit and bad fit and all of these things and the pain points and everything else, the easier they can get marketing to get qualified people for you to talk to. So you should be working hand in hand, and not this, well, you guys are terrible, and no, you guys are terrible, and the way that most people treat it.
Yeah. So what other tools do you use besides for CRMs? Do you use project manager tools, something to keep track of what you're writing on your because you do a podcast as well. So what other tools do you use?
A couple of my favorite tools are very specific to how I work, right? I'm a big fan about process and templates and and making it as easy to do a lot of things as I can. And so right now I've been playing with this tool to send customized video clips for prospecting, right? Because since a lot of people are at home, you can't really call them on the office line, right? But they're still getting their emails. So I can
Yeah.
record a quick little video that looks much like this Zoom chat that we're having right now, customize it for the individual and send it to them, right? Put a little message in there, and then it's got the clickable video right there. So you can just watch that video and I can give a little spiel and see if it makes sense to have a conversation. So I'm always looking for new tools like that, so that way I can try to do more. That tool, I don't know if I said the name, is called Vidyard, which is actually a Chrome extension, but it's fantastic, right? Because these people get an opportunity to see me, right? Which is a humane experience, and reminds that person that there is another human on the other side of this. So before you ignore it, or before you blow up, or before you get mad that someone, is reaching out in an attempt to have a conversation to see if they can help you, like watch this video and be reminded that there is a human here. So there's tools like that. I'm a big fan of putting everything into a to-do list and then kind of, filtering it out later on, the whole getting things done methodology. So I use Todoist for that. Everybody on my team can like access my to-do list, add things on there. I can add stuff for them. And so that way there's one place where all the to-dos hit. So that way nothing falls in the cracks. And that means that I don't have to allocate any kind of mental bandwidth to trying to remember, do I need to follow up with this person? Because if it's sales oriented, then that of course lives in my CRM, and that's really easy to do, but
Yeah.
not everything I do is attached to a sales opportunity. It might be that I've got a certain, weekly KPI around the amount of words I'm going to write, or content I put out, or emails I send, and things like this. So all of that stuff lives in Todoist for me. There's plenty of great to-do apps out there, but anything that's around a sales opportunity lives in the CRM. And making that distinction for myself really helps me stay on track with everything that I've got going on.
Because like you said, you can't, you don't necessarily always want to use something that's all encompassing. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I use Trello, I use ClickFunnels, I use a couple of different things, but I mean, it's not like my to-do list or tasks would be included into where I'm doing the marketing from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you got to parse it out to where it's going to make most sense for you and for your team and where everybody can actually
I
collaborate
love
together.
Trello. I mean, they make that thing so easy to use, and
Yes, it does.
in
It
my
is.
opinion, they shouldn't be giving that away for free to anybody, but I'm glad that they do, because
So am I.
we use it for everything. The editorial calendars and edits, and our ticketing system for people is tied to that as well. I mean, it is a very robust tool and can really help you manage projects and get things done. So yeah, Trello is huge.
It syncs across all my devices, everything. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the things that I don't think I'd want to live without. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Biker PM.
Don't forget to watch for part 2 dropping on Thursday.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be with like-minded individuals and improving their project management skills, join the Biker PM Facebook group. Until next time.